did that with our latest America Uncovered episode, actually.
Which one?
Oh, the episode that talked about the Pfizer.
Oh, the Project Veritas and the gain of function kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, you added an interesting point that I think is worth bringing up.
Because it does tie to China, right?
Yeah. So the Project Veritas had released this undercover video that allegedly shows a Pfizer employee that they claim was some director level position. But I mean, also I don't really know what that means in Pfizer, because in certain companies, everybody is a vice president. So it's not clear how much decision making
Am I a vice president?
I don't actually know we don't really have job titles.
You have a job title.
I do, but it's not like a job title that confers anything. It's humor ninja. That means nothing in any kind of organizational, hierarchy. But so the Pfizer the Project Veritas tape is undercover. This guy who thought he was on a date, and he was talking about how Pfizer had internal meetings about maybe mutating the virus to develop better vaccines, essentially. That was the gist of the accusations.
And that the public wouldn't like that, so they were keeping it quiet.
Yeah, but he didn't actually claim that Pfizer was currently doing it. So then Pfizer came out with a rebuttal that was we have never done this kind of research on these vaccines.
Except sometimes we have.
Well, they said it wasn't gain of function that they said they were doing. They said that they sometimes do certain research to make sure that the antiviral properties work. And then they were this is research that's required by U.S. regulators for all antivirals. So they were this isn't anything out of the ordinary that we're doing, and we haven't. So they might not be lying when they say they haven't done any gain of function or a directed evolution research, because that's actually not the claim that the guy made.
Right. But then the larger point is...
The larger point that we made in our American Covered episode is that, it sounds horrifying to people. I think this is why this got a lot of play, right? Because it sounds horrifying to people that Pfizer would mutate a virus to make a better vaccine. But this is actually what the entire field of virology does. Mm-hmm. The point of the type of research that the EcoHealth Alliance, who was funding the Wuhan lab, among other things, does, this gain of function experiments to take viruses that they find in the wild that could affect humans at some point, and then manipulate them to actually be contagious to humans, is that they're trying to develop vaccines or treatments ahead of time. That's their whole excuse for it, right? That they're this is a good thing. This is cutting edge science because we're actually going to help. And we found a video from Peter Daszak, who's the head of EcoHealth Alliance, talking in 2019 about this, where he actually talks about how, coronaviruses are pretty, because of the spike protein, we can take that spike protein and put it on the backbone of another virus and basically do this type of experiments to see. He's talking about gain of function, where he's to see how they work. And then he says, it gives us a lot more diversity in the sequencing. So this is good. It's all presented as this is great science. Mm-hmm. It is going to help us.
And so give us taxpayer dollars to do this.
Yeah. Right. And then he specifically said, with the SARS virus, he's talking about the 2003 SARS virus. He was if you wanted to develop a vaccine for it, the logical thing to do is to take the SARS, pandemic SARS, the one that spread, and to try to develop a vaccine to it. But what if you took, he's if you put in some of these related, essentially sequences, right, that then you could develop an even better vaccine. So he basically said it, the same thing that the Pfizer guy was saying, the idea that you could mutate viruses so that you could see what they were like and develop a vaccine for them.
Right, but he said it in 2019 before basically anyone had heard of COVID.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't remember exactly when in 2019 the video is from, but it's essentially him saying this is the great stuff we're doing, right?
And it would have continued to be great had there not been a global pandemic that people are tying to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. But so, I mean, it is what the Wuhan Institute of Virology was doing. It was that kind of research.
It was that kind of research. So
again, I'm not saying, just for clarity, I'm not saying we definitely know where COVID-19 came from.
Also, Pfizer vaccines against COVID are very effective and very good.
Thank you for the clarification.
Everyone should get them and get the third booster now, or the fourth booster. They're very effective.
So the point though is that like what people are getting mad at is actually just like almost standard practice. So you
Yeah.
can also see why like so many virologists came out and were like, "Oh no, there's no way that this could have been a lab leak."
This is perfectly safe. What we're doing is safe.
Because, you know, if it was a lab leak, it would basically call into question like all the stuff they said was safe actually created a dangerous pandemic. You said you were going to prevent the next pandemic by doing this research, and instead you created the next pandemic. So there goes all of your government funding. There goes all, you know, it's just like a lot of people are invested. I mean, not everybody. There are a lot of virologists who have spoken out against this and said we need to actually investigate and make sure
they
we're
were
not
silenced.
Yes, but like there was this big institutional push, especially at the beginning, led by Peter Daszak, to like refute all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it is amazing that at the beginning, Peter Daszak, who was the head of the EcoHealth Alliance, who was doing this gain of function research in the Wuhan lab, he was the loudest voice about there is no way this could have been a lab leak. It came from nature.
Actually, he secretly organized like a bunch of scientists to write that letter.
Yeah, who also, all of them ended up, I think except for maybe one, were also taking money from
Well, they
China
had ties
in
in some ways, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, there was, I think in 2018, a U.S. review of that facility found that they were not following the highest biosafety levels, like some experiments that should have been done in biosafety level 4, which is like spacesuits, were being done in biosafety level 2, which is like masks and gloves.
We were joking that people were basically sterilizing their groceries with biosafety level 2 back when people thought that we needed to sterilize groceries, you know?
I remember that. Good times.
Yeah. So, I mean, so apropos of nothing, you know, it would be a great scientific experiment. We should create zombies. So that we can understand how to fight zombies in case there's a zombie apocalypse.
And what could go wrong with infecting people and turning them into zombies? Because, like, you know,
but
they would never escape the lab
conditions.
Yeah, well, I mean, you start with like making a zombie rat or a chimpanzee.
And,
it won't spread.
There you go.
Just make sure you use biosafety level Z.
Ooh. Well, isn't that how, like, the zombie like outbreak started from China in World War Z, right?
No, that was like their organ harvesting. Right?
Yeah, it was through organ harvesting, and that just created some kind of virus. That's a little, what we were just talking about is a little more like 28 days later.
Okay.
Which was like a rage virus or something. They were studying like why, like where rage comes from.
Like the emotion rage?
Yeah, something like that in order to cure it. And so then like these animal activists like broke into a lab and like released some infected animals because, you know, they were going to save the environment. And then, you know, they get mauled by the animals. And then, you know, 28 days later, you have a movie.
Mm.
Also, Army of the Dead started with some government, government was transporting zombies.
Oh, wasn't that, it was like a military zombie, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't very clear how the military got a zombie.
There's a lot of hand waving in that film, but like the point is the military had him like in a container, but then there was an accident on the road, and then
I mean, so the point is like in pop culture, there's definitely is the idea of like you know, experiments going wrong.
Right, but in real life,
that never happens.
Everyone's so competent and totally on the same page when it comes to science.
Never
that nothing
take
could ever
any
go wrong.
They never take any shortcuts.
No,
They never do something in biosafety level 2 that should be done in level 4. No virus has ever escaped a lab like the SARS virus did in 2004 in Beijing and caused another outbreak. You know,
CERN is definitely not colliding universes together, which is how we end up with the Mandela effect.
Okay, that's a different. You taken that in a completely different direction now.
I did. My job requires me to spend a lot of time on the internet, and I see things, Shelley.
Well, speaking of deluding ourselves into thinking that science is all on the same page, John Kerry.
Oh, wait. Before we get to that, though, but I think the point of the virology thing and the Pfizer thing is that if you're mad about the Pfizer video, you actually should just be mad at the entire field of virology and what they've been doing for years and claiming that it's like all positive. And maybe we should be looking into whether this is a good idea, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had a great transition.
That I'm sorry, totally busted.
Yeah.
But, okay, so
gosh,
science.
This is the first on the show that somebody
has interrupted somebody in a bad way.
I know. And
Oh my
derailed
gosh,
something.
is this how it feels? Well, I think the only way for me to deal with this is to just do it more to you as revenge.
I'm not sure you could do it more.
Yeah, like, I am not going to grow from this. There's no introspection happening here. We're gonna talk about John Kerry.
Yeah.